Hey everyone, welcome to Big News, so One Piece, a trading card game show where we talk about the latest and greatest news and upcoming events and everything like that. Today we have a very special guest, Clyde TCG, aka Jackson Hoang, probably the most accomplished player in the game. We were actually debating how many Stereo Luffy's he had won before the show, and I guess Clyde, go ahead and take it away. Just introduce yourself to maybe people who don't know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Jackson. I go by Clyde in games. That came from like a mobile game where I needed a gamer tag. I didn't want to use my real name, so I just used Clyde because my girlfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, she's Bonnie. So then we thought it would be cute to have matching names. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
I didn't
so
know
I
that
just
actually.
yeah, that's how it came up. But yeah, I just started playing card games 3 years ago with Digimon. Then I transitioned over to One Piece because that's also a Bandai game. And yeah, I'm mainly a One Piece player now.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And of course, I got my co-host today, Alchemist, regional winner. Go ahead and just say hello to everybody for today.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? So, we're going to start out first on the docket. We're going to talk about Knoxville. So, I've been doing a lot of testing with OPO4, and I'm very confused on what Knoxville is going to look like
Now, before we
because
start, we should mention the drama, right, that happened with Knoxville. I think it was like 2 days ago. Like, I'm at work, I'm checking Discord, and all of a sudden, boom, like, oh, sorry guys, OPO4 will not be legal for Knoxville, and everybody started going crazy. So we're actually from we're from Atlanta, or I'm from Atlanta. Alchemist was in Atlanta. He's now in Florida. But essentially, our region will be going to Knoxville. This is kind of one of the big tournaments of the year that they get to go to, and so our whole community was like freaking out, like, oh no, like, people had spent has had money on cards, people had been testing, and obviously people were not happy with that. I know, I was a little happy, and I think Clyde, I saw you maybe memeing a little bit too, like saying, it's okay, I haven't bought a flight yet, so I'm really happy.
Yeah, I was
But
happy for a different reason. I was happy because I didn't buy my flight yet, and like I didn't want to go anyway. The only reason I wanted to go was, like you said, it was the first OP4 event, and I thought it'd be really cool to do well there. And then once it got to OP3, I was like, all right, nice, I can stay home now.
yeah, and I kind of did a little bit similar thing where like, oh, I get to play Kid one more time because I love playing Eustace Kid, and so like, oh, I'll just bust out the old Kid control deck and I get to play that one more time. But I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 hours right away. They reversed the decision. I don't know how they did that. I mean, it looks like they were they must have like sent a bunch of screenshots to Bandai and said, hey, look, this is hurting our reputation as a tournament organizer. Like, we need to definitely reverse this. And I think if anything, they did mention with a caveat, like, yeah, we're going back to OPO4 with some modifications, I think, or something. I forgot the exact wording. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. But as far as I can tell, it's just going to be a regular tournament with OPO4 now included. And side events also will have OPO4. I guess the big question, like you said, Clyde, is just it's new format. What's going to be good? What's going to be what's going to show up? And I guess Alchemist, just if you want to now continue with your point.
now that we're on this topic, might as well ask, why do you think they did that? Like, why do you think they tried to change it to OPO 3.5 again? What was their reasoning behind that? Was it like the overinflated price of cards? Do you think like is it actually like the meme where they're gonna lift the ban? Like, what possible reason could they have to do that? This is insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation, and like that was the biggest or the most popular one. It's like, oh, they must be releasing the restrictions. That's why they want to be OPO3. But I played a lot of Bandai games, and typically Bandai doesn't let a set be legal 1 week after anyway. So this was kind of an outlier where they let it be legal on the day of release. I've had Digimon events in the past with Bandai where it would release on set day, but it would still be the old set because they want to wait a week. So I always thought this event was an outlier. So I think it could be the speculation everybody's had, like, oh yeah, there are lifting restrictions, but it also could just be like, yeah, this is how we always done things. So why would this event be any different? So for all those people hoping to get the restrictions released, like this isn't really a good determination of that. Just go with your hopes up.
Yeah, it would always be nice to get your hopes up. What were you saying? Sorry.
No, that's like it still could be though. Like I just want to open people's eyes to other possibilities.
Well, it seems maybe they might have been doing it for the best interest of the people, just in general, because if they had that tournament, weren't they saying that PPG was going to be selling like boxes there and stuff and all the singles? They're going to make a killing, so maybe they just wanted to, like, you were complaining, and then they're like, okay, maybe this isn't such a good idea, so they try to reverse it, and then more people complained, and they were like, oh crap, this is an even worse idea. we'll just deal with it? Like, is there a possibility you just did it for like financial reasons?
I don't think so. I
Yeah,
don't think so.
it's possible, but I think that's a really low possibility of if that was the reason why.
I mean, from what I heard, again, I'm not sure how true this is. Essentially, Bandai said if you want the pricing, which is the Serial Luffy, all the prize card, promo cards, and everything, you have to do it by our rules, right? And I'm not sure how true that is, but that's what I heard. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, PPG is one of the biggest organizers. They've been around for a long time. They know how to run events. I doubt they would, this would be something that they would do on purpose. They kind of know, especially when it's a OPO. When it's a new set, that's probably the most hype. That's when most people are watching the streams. That's when most people are buying cards. That's like the number one event. Every time there's a new set. So there's no reason to not run a set. That would just kill the tournament right away and lose them a ton of money. So.
Well, to go back to the previous topic, I have no idea what people are going to be running at this tournament. Like, I assume everyone's going to be flocking back to just like maybe Zoro or Whitebeard, but I just don't think that it's without these restrictions lifted. It seems kind of crazy to try to craft something around a whole meta that like doesn't really exist yet. So I'm having a really tough time making a meta call on this. What do you guys think that this is going to be? Let's kind of like maybe like top 4 represented decks, or what it's going to look like. What are you guys expecting?
I mean, I think the easiest one to predict is probably top 2 is going to be Katakuri and Whitebeard.
Yeah, you really think people are going to go to Whitebeard that much? Dang.
Yeah, I mean, 1, it's a strong deck, but 2, like for the people who couldn't get new cards or don't want to bother paying like the really inflated prices for new cards, they're gonna be like, why would I change things up? I have a OP3 deck I could play that is probably still really strong or that I'm comfortable with. So I think that's still going to be popular. And like I've tested myself, it still feels really strong. And then Katakuri just because Katakuri was already popular even when it was bad. So
yeah.
Why would people not play it now when it's good?
I think Katakuri will be number 1. I know in our region, there's a lot of Namis all of a sudden. I know, Clyde, you've been testing Nami in the previous set. I know a lot of people. I think our locals now is like half Nami, or well, not half. I mean, like 30% Nami or something. Yeah, I know. So one guy played 3 Namis in a row at our locals. So I guess maybe there's a difference, right, between the kind of the more seasoned veteran players and maybe someone who's going to maybe their 3rd or 4th, whether you count online and offline, maybe going to their 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th event. I think, obviously we saw Whitebeard dominate last season, and like you said, if you don't really want to buy new cards, you can just keep playing Whitebeard. I think, if anything, I've seen a lot of uptick in Law in my area as well. A lot of people jumping on the Law bandwagon. Personally, I don't know. I have to say probably obviously Katakuri and Law. Yeah, probably those are the 2 that I'm probably expecting a lot of. So
I just always expect there to be more Zoro, I guess, just because that's like, I don't know. I was thinking about it today, and I feel like a lot of people was like, I put all this work into this deck, and I'm just not going to play anything else. Like, screw it. I don't even care if it's bad. I don't care if Zoro's dead or whatever is going which way. I'm just going to play this thing that I've been playing for at least 2 sets. So for some reason...
Here's the thing about Zoro, though. I feel like a lot of Zoro players hate playing Zoro. And so they're like looking.
I did hate playing Zoro.
They're looking for any excuse to get off the deck, like.
I didn't realize it was a self-loathing community. I guess I did quit that deck in OPO2. I just like jumped off before it got too deep.
Yeah, I never hopped on Zoro, but I've heard, and Jackson, you can tell me if it's right or wrong, but essentially I've heard that the mirror is not very nice.
It's not. Bad. Yeah, I mean, it's just, bird gaming, whoever sees more Marco. But other than that, like, just also, like, if you're playing Zoro, you've probably been playing it for a while. Like, I've been playing Zoro since basically beginning OPO2. So it's not necessarily that the deck is boring to me. It's just that I've been playing it for so long because it's been so good. So I'd rather something else be really good.
Yeah, and I think one of the factors as well is that, of course, we get the kind of the luxury of having the Japanese meta known ahead of time. They're able to solve a lot of the decks. So like we kind of know what like a standard Dofi deck looks like now. We kind of look like what a standard Katakuri deck looks like, and so on and so forth. So people are able to test, and we have the sim as well. So we have the simulator. So that means that people are able to test. I know some people have been testing for like a month or 2 already. Looking forward to the new set. And so that means that there's less surprise and less shock factor. I think if we were going into it blind, I think a lot of people would kind of stick to Zoro, and because it's something that they know and they don't want to risk, playing something that might be really bad, even if it's a new leader. But the fact that we do kind of know some of the results coming out of Japan and in Asia, and then the fact that we can also test on the sim makes it so that people are much more comfortable playing some of the new decks, and they're able to give them a try. And there are a lot of new decks. Like that is one of the things. Like even though I think the Katakuri, Law, Whitebeard, these decks are going to be at the top, I think there's going to be like probably 20 different decks that you can probably run into. A lot of old decks getting support, a lot of new decks popping up that are still pretty solid. So, yeah.
So, just a final touch on this subject. So, I played against your Zoro, Jackson, and it seemed pretty good into what people were trying to do, especially if you were able to fit some sort of Fire Fist to go against Law. Like, do you think Zoro's a viable pick for Knoxville?
Yeah, for sure. I think Zoro is just one of the decks that's always going to be there because it's probably the quickest deck at winning. Just having speed is good enough to like even get around bad matchups. Like I can win by like my 8-9 Dawn turn, and I think that always has a place in the meta. In terms of like winning, I feel like it'll be really good, really represented. But a lot of the top players that I know that used to play Zoro are like switching off of it, just because the biggest thing that appealed to you as a Zoro player is that it's so consistent. You play 3 searchers. But now all of these new decks are really consistent as well. Like Film Dofi plays 2 searchers. Rebecca is a searcher in the leader effect itself. So like the thing that made people gravitate towards Zoro is now like present in other decks, which is a consistency.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So there's been a lot of graphs and talk about just Law being basically the answer to the meta right now. People are saying that Rebecca is a very, very hard deck to play. So the likelihood of running into a super good Rebecca is going to be kind of low. So you can get away with playing Law, which I'm not a Law player, but I just like know this from OPO3 also that Law just destroys Katakuri. And it destroys Queen. I'm not even good at Law, and I can destroy Queen with it. It pretty much has good matchups all the way around, and it almost seems like you have to get unlucky to not do well with Law if you're a really good Law player, because all you have to do is dodge a good Rebecca player, which seems, how are you going to come by that this early into the stage? Like, has some guy been playing for 90 days straight just Rebecca? Like, what do you guys think about Law and how it's positioned in this meta?
Yeah, I mean, like always, Law is probably the deck that has the least amount of bad matchups. Like I think if Rebecca didn't come this set, like Law would still have no bad matchups. Like Zoro, yeah, was always a bad matchup, but it wasn't like a 40-60 where you can navigate around it. But I think the appeal of Law just really is that like you mentioned, has a really good yellow matchup, and everybody's expecting a lot of yellow. Like I think, like Boris said, yellow's probably gonna be the most represented deck.
And the weird thing about Law is I was talking to my friend back in like OPO2 about Law, and I'm like, this is a leader that's gonna be good for the rest of the game, as long as they keep continuing to make red and green cards that cost 5 or less. This is going to be a really good leader. Like, it's only going to get better. And the funny thing is, it's still one of the top decks, but there really aren't many cards that have been added to the deck. I mean, OPO3, I can't even, I'm trying to think if there are any cards that were added. Maybe like, I don't know if there are any cards added from OPO3.
There's been so little cards added that Law players are doing anything to fit in a new card. Just wishing
OPO4.
they could put in a new card. They're like, let me put in a Rosinante, let me put a Diamante, anything so I could just touch a new card from OPO4.
Yeah, even OPO5, we've seen the deck still going strong. And, I was right on the one hand that it was going to continue to be a strong deck going into the future of the game, but I was wrong in the fact that I thought it was going to be because of the fact that we get new cards that fit in the deck. I think it was just always just really powerful, and I think really OPO2 kind of solidified its searching capabilities with the Dawn. So, yeah, I don't know. If we'll talk about bans later maybe, but like if anything, from a personal standpoint, the deck I've lost to the most is Law, and so I'm just trying to
True.
hoping one day the deck just gets but it is important check in the meta. So I mean.
So I got a question for you two guys. On a scale of like 1 being like easy Katakuri to play, and then 10 being like if you don't know what you're doing every step of the way, you're gonna automatically lose. How hard do you think Law is?
I would put it probably like second hardest after Rebecca. I think Rebecca is going to be the hardest deck to pilot by far. But even then, I feel like this game is not, too complicated in the lines. Like you can learn how to back in OPO2 when Law was like the best deck by far. I've seen like a lot of law players like do well, like go X1 or like I would see like an X1 law player in the last round and he would misplay so much, and I'm just like, okay, this deck kind of just carries people too, just because it's so strong. But even like then, like One Piece is that couple of game, I would say like Law was probably the second hardest deck after Rebecca.
So that even, I guess by my standards, that makes it even better positioned because you can be a worse law player. Or if there was a law player and a Rebecca player of equal skill, the law player could still come ahead just because the
Yeah,
deck is marginally easier.
yeah. I think the thing about law is that also like it's been around for a while. So one of the drawbacks is that people have kind of started to learn how to play around it. People, they've started to learn how to starve the deck, so like they don't attack them. Laws have adjusted now. They're adding Sanji, so they can take life themselves. Um, but in terms of piloting, I'm still a little scared to play it in like a 9 round tournament. One of these days I really should just sit down and just get my reps in and learn the deck and actually try it at a big tournament. Just because Law is my favorite character, I don't know why I never actually learned the deck.
And you're a veteran card player too, so you like have played much more complicated decks, right, than Law.
Yeah,
Just
but
in
I don't. I
general.
usually the thing is I don't. So Law's like I consider it a combo deck because you kind of have to you try to assemble your pieces and then every turn you kind of just your same loop over and over again. I've always gravitated more towards like mid range, especially in Magic. I'm more mid range style decks where I kind of play like this like semi big dude and then I kind of try to out tempo my opponent. It's a little different to my usually play style, but I guess that's a good question just randomly for Jackson. If you said you used to play a previous game, like what kind of play style do you usually gravitate towards in card games?
In Digimon, I kind of gravitate towards like a lot of control as well. That's why I think the deck that's been representative of like how I play the most is like the Kid deck in OPO1. That was like a super control deck, and I like the checkmate kind of turns where it's like, okay, I have guaranteed game here. Like I don't like the I'll swing here and hope I get it and I get there and just hope. I hate that kind of thing. I like securing my win.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I
definitely.
think a lot of people will sometimes YOLO and like they 90% to win, and then they lose that 10% where they could have just dragged the game out a turn later and then just guaranteed the win. So yeah, I get
There's
that.
definitely one of the upsides of playing Whitebeard too. You just math it out, and then you're like, oh, okay, well I just win next turn, and it feels real nice. All right. So another point of contention in the community has been slow playing because I have seen some egregiously long games so far, just in random testing, like 45-minute games, 50-minute games, where it's a Rebecca mirror or a Queen versus a Rebecca, or just a game where both sides have just so many resources and go so they can just go forever. How I guess what I want to know is first off, what's your opinion on like how egregious you think this is going to be and how rampant it's going to be, and maybe even what you can do to protect yourself against it? Because personally, like my only idea is like I might just play Nami because there's no way that they could slow play it if the game only lasts 6 turns. It's like my game is always going to be over on time because I'll never get past turn 10. But what do you think, Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, this is something like I struggle calling out as well because I don't like, rude and rude. Like when I try to play a game, I try to like, oh, cool, like talk to my opponent or whatever. And like this kind of came up during R332, the one in Ohio where we came first, where one of my opponents, like he wasn't slow playing intentionally, but he was waiting. Or he wasn't the middle seat, he was on the outside. He waited for the middle seat to be done his turn. And he's like asking for his advice. And like I didn't really want to call it out, but I sat next to my teammate in the middle, and he kind of called out for me. I was like, oh, thank God he's there, because like I don't really feel right calling this guy out for slow playing, but that's kind of what he was doing, not intentionally. But in this game, yeah, SF4 is gonna be a lot of slow deck, slow playing, and like that's the really reason I didn't want to bring like a slow deck to Knoxville, is because Top Cut is like an hour for 3 games. It seems so short, and I've lost a game in overtime as Law just because like we played 3 turns and I had 4 life. So that's why I didn't want to bring a slow deck to Knoxville. I think if you want to protect yourself around it, like just get used to like calling people out in like a nice way. Like you don't have to be like the dickhead about it, be like you got to make a move or whatever. It's like, oh, like can you like hurry it up? Like maybe try to be nice about it, and then maybe he's not intentionally doing it. If like you can tell he's intentionally doing it, then you can call a judge or whatever. But like assume good intent first, and then afterwards, then you can kind of like call a judge or something.
Yeah, I agree. I usually like to give my opponents like like I want to say a warning, but like I'll just mention like, hey, that we have this much time left in the round, and then if they keep doing it, then I'll say, hey, I'll need an action soon. And
On the
then
other hand, like if you order one slow playing, like if you know you're about to take a long time, be like, oh sorry, I'm just gonna think about this. I think I did that against you, Boris, in our game against Kid, because I was like, this is a pretty big turn. I was like, sorry, I'm just gonna think about this real quick.
yeah,
Um,
I think if my opponent throughout the game has been playing at a good pace, and all of a sudden they stop to take a turn, I'll usually give them probably up to 5 minutes. If it's just a one time thing, I sometimes I consider myself a really fast player, and there have been times where I kind of just have a really difficult turn and I could stop and I think, but then after that I make sure to play fast to kind of make up for that time. Um, so yeah, I'd say definitely call a judge if you've given them like a heads up and then they continue to play slow because I mean it is a thing. There have been famous, for example, Magic the Gathering has cases of famous pros who have won a lot of stuff and they eventually got banned because people notice that they slow play and intentionally that makes people lose their spot in top cut, take somebody's spot, and that really should have had it. And it is considered cheating at the end of the day, right? Especially if you're bringing a deck designed to slow play and take the win that way.
Do you think we'll have an Encounter the Forbidden Queen combo where you just
two queens or what do you mean?
No. So the Forbidden combo is basically that you just stall the game out to like turn whatever takes you to time, and then you get to 0 life, and then the last turn of regulation you play Yamato and heal. And you get 2 life, and you're probably going to win in time, like most of the time, because they're more than likely going to have less than 2 life, and you just win in time from a double heal, and that's the last turn of the game.
I think there's some decks where, like, if Queen is slow playing the entire game, I mean, you're going to have 4 cards or less than 4 cards in hand the entire game. There's no reason your turn should be taking that long. So you can kind of, like, tell, like, okay, this guy might be trying to slow play. Then you can call a judge or whatever. Like, I think I remember I went against a Kid, and we were getting close to overtime, like 5 minutes left, and he had, like, 2 cards in hand, and I swung, like, 5K or something. And it was like a really easy, like either you take it or you don't. Like it shouldn't take that long. I think he spent like 2 minutes on it because I think he's trying to go to time because I was at 0 life. So like I like kind of like told him like okay like you gotta hurry up or do something. And then I was like about to call a judge if he took any longer, but he ended up taking it. So you can kind of tell when your opponent's slow playing you.
And I guess to that point too, my first time, I think I've only gone to time like once or twice ever, and my first time was against some Magellan player back in OPO2 or 3 or something. But essentially, I was like shocked because it was my first time going to time, and I didn't really know like I couldn't process how the whole procedures work. So I'd say if anything, maybe try practicing. If this is kind of like if you want to go all the way extra, like you can try practicing like an example of what is it 5 minutes, right? You get 5 minutes / 3 turns. So maybe try practicing that scenario once or twice, so that you're more comfortable when you do actually end up going to time. Because what I kind of just got shocked and I kind of felt a little frozen and a little paralyzed. You're like, oh, like what do I do? What do I do? So I definitely felt uncomfortable in that scenario. And if you practice it once or twice, I think you'll get it in case you ever do go to time, which is more likely to happen in this format because it's a lot slower.
With OPO3, just like playing Whitebeard, you just never go to time. It's just like your matches are over all in 10 minutes. I've never even thought about time, but I can imagine that being a really... Actually, no. One time in a local, this guy took me to time, and I had no idea what was going on, and I just lost because I was like, oh, I didn't realize I had 5 more minutes, all this stuff. So, yeah, you kind of get put on the spot because, I don't know, I just never think about going to time at all. Like, so probably should get better at that. We already talked about, I guess, just to gloss over this topic again, do you guys think they're going to lift the ban? Yay or nay?
Right now I think so, just because it's not because of the whole PPG thing. I think it's just because the Asian meta has been playing without it, and either they lift our ban or they ban the cards for them, and it doesn't seem right to ban the Whitebeard cards now when Whitebeard's not doing anything in OPO5, so I feel like they will lift it.
So does that include Radbeam in your assessment, or you like they're just going to lock everything?
I think some combination. I think Radbeam might be problematic too. The other 2 cards, which are Whitebeard specific, like Nugate and Marco, like they are mostly to counter or to gut Whitebeard, but Radical Beam can use it in like the new red, purple, Luffy, so that might stay. I think some combination of the restriction will stay.
Yeah, I think. Again, like they have data now from Japan. So there's 2 philosophies really. Do they want to stick with trying to keep it as close as possible to Japan? Or do you want to do like the Yu-Gi-Oh thing where they just have a completely different metagame? In Yu-Gi-Oh they have like the OCG format, the TCG format, and then they also have the Master Duel format. So they have like 3 different formats, 3 different lists. It's pretty crazy. I think I think definitely the Whitebeard stuff can come back. Radical Beam To be honest, I don't really play a lot of red, so to me it's like the more red gets banned, the better for me. But I think just in general, I think I could see them coming back for sure. I'm just surprised they haven't made any announcements yet. If anything, I would assuming
What's up with
by
that?
now there would have been an announcement.
Why are they waiting so long? Like, are they deciding still? Is there like a what would be a reason for them to not tell us as early as possible?
Yeah, they might just make it like an official, like every release date on this date, like every Friday of the release, they're gonna make an announcement or something. So they might be waiting for tomorrow or something.
Yeah, maybe I don't know when you're gonna post this, so maybe they'll just announce something tomorrow, and then we will be talking about something that's obsolete.
Well, that'll be fun either way. I actually hope that happens, just so I get punished for not doing this quicker. All right, so next topic is, what do you guys think that is going to be the most represented, or I guess the most winningest? Like, I want to call it a B tier deck. I was advised to call it Dark Horse, but I want to call it a B tier deck. Like, what do you think is like your best 6-3 deck that's going to claw its way to a nice finish the most often?
So you're saying like a deck that's probably not in like the top 8 decks or something?
Yeah. Like maybe let's exclude Dofi. Like maybe that, because I don't even know if Queen is a good choice. So let's just exclude green purple Dofi, because that might be a top like 5 deck.
Right. So a Dark Horse.
Yeah, it's gonna snag probably 1 or 2 tops this entire.
I guess what are they doing for top cut? Is it top 32 for Knoxville, or is it top 16?
I think it's top 16.
Top 16. I was saying maybe. Imagine some random deck snuck in there that nobody expected.
So just as a side note, there was one time where a Z topped in one of these Japanese tournaments. So some madman could come swinging in. I don't know if you guys tried the deck, but I did it once and I lost instantly with it. So I have no idea how that guy did that.
Z and an OPO2 or
an OPO4? No.
OPO4. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess one deck I would say is maybe I got 2 decks. One is Lucci. I still think Lucci is really good. Like
really?
Lucci can get there sometimes. Like it has a great wipe your matchup. It has decent matchups to anything else. And the double attack can just make it seem so that you can get there sometimes. So I think I lost to Lucci recently on Sim 2, but I was also playing Whitebeard, so I guess I should lose that matchup. But a deck that I think can probably sneak like maybe one top that I was expecting is probably the Black Yellow Mom. I think that deck is pretty strong. I kind of cooked that deck for a lot in OPO3. I was like, okay, maybe I can make something work here. But the Whitebeard matchup was just so brutal. But now
Whitebeard. Remember you cooking it with us with that deck? One time we tried it out and you made it look really strong.
Yeah, what's your reasoning for this big
the yellow package is really strong. And then some of the black cards you can play one off. Like I can play Borsalinos, and that's so good in the mirror because the mirror you want to curve out. So if you're playing a 10-cost Big Mom, then my Borsalino blocks your leader for free, that kind of stuff. And then I just want to be some like cute with like black reduction stuff, and then maybe I can like put your 10-cost Kaido in life with Katakuri or something. So I really want to do like cute stuff like that. But I think it's just a deck where you can heal, and healing is really strong. So I think that's one deck that could sneak out like a top 16. Maybe me or something. Maybe I'll try that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll say 2 as well that I'm thinking about. So one is Blue Purple Crocodile, which I think on the same basis there, you have the ability to gain life with the 8-drop Crocodile. And from what I've played the deck a little bit, and it has so many different plays and so many different lines that I like it, and that it's not just very linear. It is, I think, a little too slow, unfortunately, for it to be like a top tier deck. But I think if it sees the right matchups, it can just outgrind like crazy. And I think Kuro potentially getting a new 1-drop that taps 1-drops, I think is what it does. I think Kuro might actually potentially get a top as well at some point. Just because I think like Don Krieg is still a really good card. And restanding it with Django is still a really good combo. We can just sneak wins out of nowhere. And if everyone's kind of relying on like 8-drops and like kind of Korean stuff to take out those guys, then maybe you can sneak in a Don Krieg on 6 and then attack and then restand. And I don't know. It just seems like, especially with everyone playing blockers as well, they might have like 2 blockers on the field and just play the Jin and rest them and just go for games. So that'll be an interesting deck to look out for. I think it could be a little bit underrated for sure.
I'm probably gonna go with Yamato for similar reasons. Like I think that the new Yamato card that came out synergizes really well with the leader ability. And I think the 6K leader is really strong, and you have like a really strong sustain at the end game. So I think, and I almost lost to that leader as Whitebeard in Orlando twice, which is like I've never even considered losing a yellow matchup as Whitebeard, and that was both those were super close. So,
yeah, 6K leader is always good. You know that if I've learned
yeah.
anything.
And then as a second pick, when the starter decks come out, Magellan is going to get its wins. Like, I know Magellan's probably going to get, like, a few tops. There are some cards in there that turn your minus Dawn to effect into, like, +4, K attack every turn, given the right board. I think that deck is going to take people super by surprise, and it's going to snag some wins.
Yeah, if everyone's playing all these big 10 drops, 8 drops, 9 drops, then just sending your opponent back a turn is huge.
Yeah, and getting all the
so that
plus
could be
for
good.
it is really nice.
When do the decks come out, by the way? Do we have a date?
November. I don't think we have an exact date, but I know sometime November.
Okay, so we still have a few months. We're still a little bit off that.
Man, that's going to make things crazy. People don't know the Wrath of Red Purple Luffy yet, where they have to stare down a 9 cost on turn, like, 3 or 4, like...
I don't even know that Wrath yet. I've played none of the new deck stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
same.
okay.
I don't really touch the new stuff until closer to release, so...
Well, okay, so I guess then that can also roll into the last topic is that do you guys think that I think that with Katakuri on the rise, the skill expression in the game is definitely lowered, in my opinion. And there's been some complaints about the OPO5 meta that is saying that the game is getting a little too linear. You basically get your Dawn amount, and you're spending that Dawn on the character that you could spend that much Dawn on, and you swing with the rest of them and use their ability if given chance. And that's like the depth of the game. Do you guys think that the meta has gotten... Or going into OPO4, do you think the meta is more restrictive or like there's more skill expression in this meta, or do you think there's less skill expression than the previous, I guess, couple or even since OPO1? How do you guys feel about kind of the direction of that? Because I think that things are getting a little bit too easy, especially when it shows how powerful of a strategy that is, with Whitebeard topping so much last season. And just because it's an easy deck to play, you can't mess it up. While Zoro players have to make all the micro, and they can just mess up twice and lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime like two of the best decks or decks that just play plain vanillas, like there's not much skill expression there. And also like the other thing is like having so many triggers, or having a deck with so many triggers be one of the best also kind of hurts because it's. People already didn't like the life mechanic because they're so trigger dependent, but now like when the triggers are game changing as like a Sanji or a Beige, it gets a little bit more frustrating. Yeah, I think like anytime yellow is one of the best decks, it's going to be hard to say that there's a lot of construction because like you can just win games off of luck. And like I would want to play Katakuri because it's one of the strongest deck, but I don't want my tournament to go by like how good my triggers are or like how well I draw my 10 drop monsters.
Let me just ask a side question that's a little probing. If the game got way too luck-based, would you continue to play it? Like say that it just continued to push in that direction of how Katakuri is now, where it's like, oh, well, I don't even have to be able to count to win a game. I just hit it out of life.
I guess I kind of equate that, like, if the game is a little bit more luck-based, it's going to be less likely for me to top, so that would deter me from wanting to play, because I just don't want to, like, if I wanted to gamble on whether, I get these nice prize cards or whatever, I could just go to the casino for that.
Exactly.
I'd rather have there be more skill expression just so that, if I lose, then it would be, like, 99% my fault, maybe 1% down to luck. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody would always say that they'd rather have more skill expression than less.
Yeah, and I think as a competitor, right, too, we just want I just want to play a good game, and that means making a lot of decisions, my opponent making a lot of decisions. At the end of the day, ideally whoever played the best and capitalized on their opponent's mistakes or whatnot came out on top, right? But if you just play a game where like no matter what I did, my opponent's going to go 8 drop, 10 drop, 10 drop, and I lose the game, then something like that. But I think at the moment it's still, I mean, like you said, Whitebeard was really popular last format. It was pretty easy to play. I mean, I think there was definitely some skill involved in the deck, but it was overall it's one of the easier decks, I think. But there was Zoro, which you said is a deck where like it had a huge advantage, but if you made 1 or 2 mistakes, that would cost you the game. I guess the question for this format, and I think it's still yet to be seen, is there going to be that deck like that Zoro, right? It could be Zoro, it could be a different deck where it's a high skill deck, a lot of decisions, and literally one or two mistakes will lose you the game. But if you play it perfectly, you're gonna have a huge advantage over your opponent. Will that deck emerge? Or will it just be a bunch of Katakuri, right? Or a bunch of Katakuri, Whitebeard, and whatnot?
It's just tough to know that your opponent is working so much less than you are to win, and you feel that mental uphill battle as you just like pray that your decisions are perfect, in this high complexity game, while your opponent goes, oh, well, I got 10, well, I'm going to play a 10. What are you going to do now? And then that's it. So it's just like that uphill battle feels like really, really rough, mentally, and could definitely tax most people to not want to continue to play the game because everybody wants these prize cards, and if you, like you said, if your chances are diminished just because of the nature of the game being more luck based, then it's just
and it's really hard right now too. I'll just kind of to close out the point here is we're kind of in this weird phase now where the beginning of the format, usually fast decks are really good because they're kind of the known entities and people don't have their decks optimized yet. But because we've been able to test for so long, and again we have data from Japan, we're gonna start off with a bunch of slow decks. And so if your deck is too fast, if your deck is not fast enough, it's gonna lose to the Namis, it's gonna lose to the Queens, right? If your deck is too fast, then maybe that's the way to go. Right now I'm not too sure, but we kind of have to find out exactly where we want to be.
That's why I'm not excited for Knoxville. I think it's just going to be just random ideas all over the place, and you're going to just try to play a meta deck, and some random guy that's been cooking up some weird thing is going to destroy you with Croc, blue purple Croc or whatever, and it's just going to be over round one because some just maniac decided to play some deck.
I think my strategy always going to a big tournament is trying to figure out what's going to be the best, the most represented deck, one or two represented decks, and make sure that my deck does well against those, and then hope to dodge whatever random decks pop up here and there. I think at least that's worked for me in the past. But of course, Jackson, you have a lot more accomplishments, so maybe you can just quickly to end this, just tell us kind of your philosophy going into the a big tournament. Do you kind of target the top decks, or do you want to play something that's kind of more even spread across the map?
I just play whatever deck I think is best. That's why I play
that's the best way to do it. Yeah.
I thought it was the best deck in set 2 until LoL started to turn up, and then I played Zoro in set 3 because I thought that was the best deck too. Even with Whitebeard topping all the time, I think it might get flamed for this, but I don't think that Whitebeard was the best deck by far. It's just the easiest deck to win with.
Yeah.
And then whatever set 4 deck I think is the best, that's what I'm gonna end up playing too. Just because I don't want to try to game it where it's I think I'll go against a lot of Whitebeard, so I'll match up against Whitebeard, and then when I go against 0 Whitebeard, then I'm just gonna regret not bringing the best deck.
So you're saying you're just gonna play Nami all format? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, Nami best deck.
All right, so that's gonna do it for us. Follow us on Twitter. Jackson, he's got a Patreon. You should sign up to that so you get best player, most goated, Luffyest knowledge on the internet. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks. See ya.